The 2013 Kansas legislative session has completed 9 weeks, and so the pace is really starting to pick up because first adjournment is scheduled in less than 2.5 weeks. So the committees are actively looking at bills, many of which have passed the opposite house, and the budget and tax policy is coming to a forefront. The governor, at the very beginning of the session in mid-January, asked the legislature to pass a new income tax bill that further reduced the income tax rate for individuals and his long-term goal of phasing out completely a Kansas income tax. The House Tax Committee passed a bill last week. That was the first action on the House side, and it's somewhat different than what the governor recommended, but it starts to phase out income tax rates based on the amount of revenue the state would receive above 2%. So in subsequent years, if revenue comes in more than 2% of the previous year, that excess money will then go to buy down the rates. One significant part of the House Committee's plan is that they would let the 6/10 of the state sales tax expire on July 1, which is what the current law holds. The governor recommended that the legislature pass a bill to keep the sales tax in place on July 1. The full Senate also took action, and they passed a bill that also started lowering the income tax rates, and they're using the figure of 4%. So any growth over 4% in subsequent years would buy down the rate. An important feature of the Senate plan is that their plan would continue the 6/10 sales tax, which makes a large difference in making these work financially, and of course meeting the budget needs that they're also working on at the same time. On the agricultural front, there's just probably a half dozen bills the Kansas Livestock Association is supporting and following. There were some hearings on those bills last week, but we really anticipate action this week. One of the bills would be to strengthen the right to farm law. That's a long-standing law that gives farmer-rancher protection from any nuisance lawsuits if someone moves in after they're established and decides that that's a nuisance. This will further strengthen that, and that's Senate Bill 168. Another bill that the Secretary of Ag had proposed at the beginning of the year would reduce the number of water structures or dams that the state requires to be registered and inspected. Their proposal would increase the size of those that are subject to exemption. The Kansas Livestock Association is working on amendments to exempt many of the earthen dams or lagoons that are used for waste control, because those are also regulated by the Department of Health and Environment, and that's House Bill 2051. Also, another bill dealing with confined livestock facilities is a bill supported by the Department of Health and Environment, Kansas Livestock Association, and other ag and livestock groups. It's House Bill 2207, and that bill simply says that when you apply for a permit or a registration of a new facility, the separation distance between that facility and a residence will be locked in until the permit is issued. That will keep individuals from trying to block the permit by putting in temporary housing before the permit is authorized, but yet after the applicant or producer makes the application with the state. And lastly, two bills actually dealing with allowing livestock facilities to be able to access an economic development program the state has called High Performance Incentive Programs, or HPIP. And that's a program that will have sales tax exemptions for the materials that are purchased and used to build those facilities. Virtually all other businesses in the state have that program, but it's not available at this point for livestock. So next week we hope to report on the progress of these as we start week number 11.